Good evening and welcome to the YouTube channel Instituto Cervantes, Manchester and Leeds. This afternoon we have the great honor to have as our guest Professor Germán Gullón. Thank you very much, Germán, for being with us tonight. And he will speak about the hybrid book market, paper versus digital text. This lecture is part of a series of the series we have organized in Instituto Cervantes, Manchester and Leeds about the culture in the digital era, in which we try to analyze the process of transformation of culture is undergoing in all these fields and aspects, and how this evolution, this change, the impact had, and how the society and the writers, the artists, the creators adapt to it. The world has changed in a breakneck speed. It's very obvious in a very, very short time. And the new technology has brought about a real revolution, especially in the book publishing. We have gone from a traditional model where the paper book was the only option, to a new reality where the digital book occupies a very, very important place. But it has not meant, as someone and some predicted, the disappearance of the printed book. At the same time, this revolution in the digital and in the printing had brought about the development of very powerful digital platforms, which has meant a concentration in a very few companies, very big companies, a large part of the market of the publishing and the books market. But at the same time, these large corporations coexist with the same time with the very small but very highly specialized and sometimes very, very successful publishing houses. Well, to speak about this and the challenges of the digital area in culture, and especially in books publishing, we have Germán Gullón. Let me introduce him. He is Emeritus Professor of Spanish in Literature at the University of Amsterdam, and he is also literary critic for El Cultural in the newspaper El Mundo in Spain. His latest books of essays are Los mercaderes en el templo de la literatura, la modernidad silenciada, la cultura española en torno a 1900 y la novela de Galdós, el presente como materia literaria, y Galdós, maestro de las letras españolas modernas, Biografía, y finally Emilia Pardo Bazán, El tiempo de la mujer, también una biografía, also a biography of this author. So thank you very much, Gullón. Thank you to our audience. When you have some questions, you can put them on our chat, and then after the lecture from Professor Gullón, we will put the question to him so we can have a dialogue. Thank you very much for being with us, and I hope you will enjoy this lecture.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Well, this is a very, one of the things that I will say just in the beginning, and I will close with that, is that I know a lot of unhappy professionals a lot of colleagues of mine during the last 2 decades somehow became very, very unhappy about the way they had to work. They were used to libraries and books, physical books, and then there was this digital world that appeared, and suddenly they had to work with books online. They had to use visuals that they were not used to it, and then it felt very uncomfortable. And part of what I'm going to tell you today is something that I gave lectures on, talks in different universities, trying to convince my colleagues that the thing is not so terrible, that we can really deal with this digital world in a very civilized manner. And that's what I'm going to try to do today. Well, you know, what Cesar the director just told us is true. We live in an age of chaos. There are really the challenges come every day, you know. As I said, let's begin with looking at the situation, the cultural situation with a wide lens, no? And as I said, this is an age that we can characterize as the age of chaos, because there are too many political and social challenges, and we don't have answers to most of them. But we know that we have to solve them, and we will solve them with time. But for example, I always said that one of the things that we solved was what I call the gender issue. One of the things that I remember 20 years ago, it was a very complicated, the gender issue. But now, somehow there is a consensus that there is a wide spectrum of gender that can go from masculinity to femininity in both extremes, and then in between there are lots of variables. So that's a way that we have found a consensus, and people will be able to find their own situation in this spectrum. So we are able to find solutions about very complicated issues, no? The one thing we can never do, and this is going to come back several times during this half hour, is we cannot turn the back to the future, which is something that many people do. They kind of turn their back to the future and look to the past and say, oh, it was so much better when so-and-so was happening. It was so much better when we had books that we could touch and so. But that it doesn't help at all. That is is not a very good way of going to solve the problems of the present. But the problems of the present related to culture are really very grave. But as I said, we're going to try to offer today the problems and also the solution to those problems. I see problems, for example, when I look at the guardians of culture. And when I look at the guardians of culture, for example, I think about the book editors, the editorial houses. The book editors have a very important role to play in society because they publish the books that we all want to read with the ideas we want to discuss, but these editors or other guardians of our culture are the museum directors. They are supposed to guard our treasures or artistic treasures. And both of them have failed us in a big way. They both see the reader and the visitor not as readers and cultural visitors, but as consumers, as people who have to, customers that have to pay. They have to get a benefit out of us. And that is a very big change in culture. For example, let's see for a minute, let's focus for a minute in Amazon. Amazon is contributing to one of the big problems of the culture today, which is the surplus of books. The market is flooded with books. When I was a student, I could really read most of the books that were being published at the time. I could at the same time read the canon of literature that was asked for me. And I could also read the critical books and articles that were written about those books. Now it's absolutely impossible. When you think that, for example, Amazon in the United States publishes a year 1,600,000 books self-published. So 1,600,000 titles that people publish through Amazon books. And this is a huge number. Just think about the library of Oxford University, the Oxford University in 1602 had 2,000 books, the library. And now Amazon publishes 1,600,000 alone in auto-published, self-published books. And then they do something which is very, very, very difficult to accept. When you buy a book from Amazon, they immediately classify you. For example, you buy a thriller, then you go into the list of thriller readers. If you buy a book about a romance, about love, then you are the reader of romance that deal with love. And so this is an algorithm that divides the reader. So what they offer you immediately is not books that can be of interest to you in other areas. They focus on those books that you already order. For example, if you are a thriller, you will get advertising and offers of thrillers. So what it does, of course, is to make you, as I said before, a consumer. You are a consumer of thrillers, nothing else. Amazon is looking for profit. It's not going to offer you some, let's say, some books of where creativity is displayed. No, they're going to offer you books that are made for customers that like this type of books. Then the profit they make, and sometimes people don't realize this, is that all the information, all this goes into iCloud. And iCloud is one of the many milk cows that they have to get your money from. I remember when I started, at one point I bought for $1 extra capacity in iCloud from Apple. After a few months, they say, oh, you need more. So we offer you more capacity for $1.99. And so at one point you have all your pictures, all your books, everything that you in iCloud. So really every month they have income from you that you have to pay. So Amazon is not only there for the book, but it's going to get you to catch your to get your money, actually. There is something that I read a week ago that for me was very, very disturbing, that Banco Santander, for example, and and some business schools in Spain were teaming up with Amazon to offer some courses and some training for students in Spain. And I immediately thought, yeah, perfect. They are going to be trained, but they are going to be customers of Amazon for the rest of their lives. Isn't so? You become a sort of a slave for these people, no? A financial slave. Then, I don't know if you read this month that Bertelsmann, the German giant that owns Penguin, Random House, wanted to buy in the United States Simon & Schuster, a great competitor. So, well, remember we said Penguin. For me, Penguin, when I remember Penguin, it was not part of Random House. It was these beautiful paperbacks from all the literature of the world, all these wonderful prologues, epilogues, beautiful books, wonderfully translated, with the best critical introductions that you can read in a very well-produced book. Now it's from Random House. It's German. But German, that the main office is in the United States, in New York. And they want to buy Simon & Schuster, because Simon & Schuster is the great competitor. But thank goodness, the United States has stopped the deal, because they say, well, what do you want? You want to have all the books between Amazon and Penguin Random House? We'll have everything. They will sweep up the market, and then there will be no choice. The difference between Amazon and Penguin Random House is that Penguin Random House, they sell books, big books, like Hillary Clinton's memoirs or John Irving's thrillers. So all these type of books that they're big books. If you travel, if you go by plane or travel in the train or in the metro, you see people with these big books, no? And everybody in the summer say, okay, let's take one of these big pills. They probably are from Penguin Random House. And then if you have to buy something quickly, then you go out to Amazon and you buy the book from Amazon. So the market choice is very, very reduced. Then, and going briefly to the museum directors, what is happening there is very, very troublesome. I have worked many years, both in editorial house and with museums. And the museums before, what they wanted was to present an artist, a theme to the public. Now that doesn't really, it's not even in their thoughts. What they really want is that you go to a museum and get entertained. By Froebel, there is, for example, there is this exhibit about Picasso, and then you go there and, well, you pay a lot of money to get in because it's Picasso, no? And then one thing you immediately realize is that, well, let's see, why I'm going always to the same exhibits? There's always the big names. Where are the others? What is the other? What are the others? Sorry, what are the other? What are the others? Well, they disappeared. One of the things that have disappeared from the art world is the art criticism, because now the value of a work of art has nothing to do with what a critic thinks, has everything to do with propaganda. The only thing that adds value to artwork is what the market will bear. If the market says, well, let's see a Monet, of course, that costs a lot of money. But let's say you go to a less known painter, and then nobody's interested. Because the value is the value assigned by the sellers, not by the art world, nor by the critics, nor by the museums. So, as you see, the guardians of culture, the editors, the museum directors, have failed us tremendously. They have gone after the business. But there is something to be said about libraries and museums. When you go to a library and you get a book, or when you go to a bookstore and you buy a book, a physical book, a paper book, then you have something in your hand. The same in the library. So they are really the real product. It's the same thing with a picture. When you go to a museum and you see a picture of an artist, then you have the real thing. The same with the book in the library or in the bookstore. But then people say, oh, but I have this book in the digital, I downloaded it somehow. But it's not the same thing. It's the same as you go and in your computer you download pictures from whatever you like. And then you have a picture in your computer. But this is not the same as having the book or having the picture, the physical picture. There is something in the material culture that is very important to preserve, because they are real objects. They are real objects that you can touch, that you can feel. And this is very important. So I think in the present time, when somebody, today I got a book, a gift, a book, a physical book. And the person that gave it to me said, but do you have a Storytel, which is a streaming service that you can listen to the book in audio form? So you see, I have this book, physical book, but they say, oh, if you are going tomorrow I'm going to Madrid in the airplane, I can be reading it, but maybe I got tired, so I can go into my telephone and put my and listen to the book. So I can do both. It is wonderful, this hybrid way of living that we have now. But I really value the real object, because that is, for me, is a real object. The audio I also value, because I'm leaning in my chair in the airplane and I can continue listening to the book. Perhaps my eyes are tired, but I can continue listening. So it is this hybrid way of dealing with culture that is very, very important today. But it is clear that we are, as I said, in an age of chaos, but especially in an age of change. Later on, I will tell you briefly some of the changes in my life, which, when I put it in a small list, they are really incredible in the way to deal with culture. But what is clear is that through the digital world, we need to change. Every generation has its own take on history. The perspective for the different generations every 15 years or so, 10 years changes. And now, certainly, we realize there is a need to change our perspective. For example, when I studied, the classical world was very well defined. The classical world was the sphere of Latin and Greek. Athens, Rome, where was the places where culture was produced. So we were educated in reading Greek text and Latin text. But today, that's not enough. That's not enough classical world. The classical world today has expanded. We now think about the classical Arab world. We now think about the African world, where St. Augustine was a citizen of Africa. We are thinking about the Jewish tradition that in my time was not to be seen or to be found anywhere. So we can change our perspective in that sense, and we can really add to this, but it is not digital. It is something that we, with time, history, the way education works, the way the research, then we are adding knowledge. We are widening our perspective, as I said before. But the digital world really has made us change in a big way. But as I said before, the change is very clear, but we have to maintain the paper culture and add the digital culture, what is now being developed. I think that's why I refer to it as this moment as a hybrid moment in history. Why? When you touch, remember, many people, when they talk about, for example, Proust or memory, they always think about, remember Proust, Marcel Proust, in his great work, à la recherche du temps perdu, his remembrance, his memories come through a Madeleine, through a every time he smells, he eats the Madeleine that he ate when he was a young boy, then the memories come back to him. This is something that people really use in their lives, in the way they interpret culture, the Madeleine. But I think this is very interesting, but what the digital world has made us clear is that what we see from the past has to be relevant for the present, only will be completely gone. Es decir, the Madeleine from Proust will bring us memories, but we will be turning our back to the present and to the future. But if we engage in the digital world, what is happening is we have to turn the back to the past and look forward and look to the future. We have to understand the present. We have to understand what is happening today, because it's very important. As I said before, we have to preserve the books, the physical books that we enjoy having in our hands, the same as the pictures, the real thing, but at the same time, we don't have to adopt this idea of the Madeleine about the past. That is something that will bring us, this will overcome our senses. We will be reliving the past. No, that is not the point. We have to look to the future. there is this tremendous tension now in the world that we want to be happy, enjoy the past, enjoy the family, where we come from, where we are. But at the same time, the tension is, oh, but the future is here all the time. The digital world is telling us, oh, here is a new picture. I am adding something. I am, suddenly I discover something that I didn't know before. There is this visual that I could add. So that was not in the Madeleine, but it's something that I discovered through the digital landscape. And I take it and say, oh, this is adding something to my knowledge, to my way of doing things. What is really happening is that when we look at the past and we are really overcome by this ideal, or I should say this idealized ego that tell us, oh, in the past everything was so wonderful. Don't you remember when we went in the summer to the beach and we had tortilla de patatas and this and that, and we were, oh, this is all an ideal. Because the reality is something usually a little bit more complicated. What is the digital world make us force us to be flexible. We have to realize that past is there, but usually is an idealized past. Sometimes when you go back to a place that you idealize from the past, then you see, oh, it's smaller than I thought. Oh, it's not as beautiful as I thought. Oh, it smells not. It doesn't smell good here. Or, oh, the beach is small. Oh, the water is not so clean as it was. So you suddenly you realize that if something is happening and changing, no? But the reality is that you have to be flexible to be able to somehow mix that beautiful past that you find that defines your person, ideally, with the new person that you are having to create, which is much more flexible because you see more things. You get more information. You get more from everything. You see things that you were not able to see before. You read things that they were not available before because now they're digitalized. For example, epistolary works, letters from authors. You can read everything, but before you had an idea and idealized. The most for me is always Flaubert is the perfect example. Flaubert, wow, is somebody who wrote Madame Bovary, and the critics, starting with French Genet, very famous in the 80s of the past century, said, oh, but Flaubert was all about texts. He is in the center of modernity. He is really the person. He despised reality, and he went and created this marvelous new way of looking at the literary work as a text. It has nothing to do with reality. Well, that's exactly what Flaubert is not about. Flaubert is exactly our dilemma today. He was somebody that, of course, he didn't like reality. He liked words better. He liked forms. He liked to create forms, but he realized that the streets of Paris, life. He liked very much walking out now and see all the prostitutes, and sometimes make use of the commodity commodity in the 19th century. But at the same time, he wanted to be a hermit, to be in his house in the country. That's a little bit what is our saving grace today. We see the world is full. It's really, life is overall. We know so much. The science, all the sciences have developed enormously. Photography allows us to see everything. Digitalization gets it next to us. We can see it. We can feel it even. And sometimes very soon we are going to be able to smell it. You know, you can go now to museums where you have the smell of the time of the for example, the 19th century or even the 17th century that really smells terrible, and you can see it and smell it, no? But the digital really has brought so much, no? Forces you to use your own mind. The digital, one of the things of the Immanuel Kant, he wrote the most beautiful piece on the enlightenment, and he said, enlightenment is when somebody makes up his mind and he doesn't have to follow what, for his conscience, he doesn't have to follow what the priest says. For thinking, he doesn't have to repeat what the learned people are telling him. He can make his own mind. That is what the digital world is forcing us to do now. We have to make our own mind, because the mix, the hybridity is ours to do. Like I said before, I go in the plane with my book, and I have the paper book, and I have the audio book. I have to decide what I'm going to do. And it is, when you think about the digital world, you have to realize you can, as I said, you cannot turn the back, because there is so much content associated that comes from the digital world. There is so much audiovisual content that we can get in the digital sphere. There is so much interactivity that we can experience with the digital world. So all these things that come to us are adding a lot to what, for example, our reading experience. You can go into a digital book and touch a word that is, you don't know the meaning, and the dictionary opens and you read it. There is Mozart, and they say the symphony of Mozart concert, boom, and you can listen to it. Wow, that associated content, that is extraordinary. So the problem is that in this mobile culture, we need pioneers, and we need pioneers, and we need people who accept this hybridity. A new cultural life, I think, is developing now. No, that new cultural life is going to be hybrid, in the sense we are going to preserve the old and innovate at the same time. I think we have to be, I told you before, and I think I'm taking too much of your time, but I'm going to tell you briefly to finish what all the changes that not all, because we will be here for another hour. I'm sure you have other better things to do. But for example, I went to a high school in Madrid, Colegio Maravillas, and I remember I didn't like it at all because all I had to use was my memory. Then I went as a student at the University of Salamanca, and there I found professors, a mix of professors, hybrid. There were professors that asked me to learn to memorize everything, but then I found a professor, my main professor, Fernando Lázaro Carreter, that asked me to use my mind. Wow, suddenly ideas counted. We went to class every day, and the professor would lecture about El Lazarillo de Tormes, and then we got 5 or 6 ideas. We could go to the after class, we could go to a park and talk about it, and ideas. So I was in a high about my profession. Then I remember I went to the University of Texas where I did my PhD, and it was the same. I had very good professors, Jacobson, very good professors in French and in Spanish, and my spirit went up. And so then I went as professor at the University of Pennsylvania. I got my first computer. I remember, wow, the computer, I could write letters. Then I could write papers 7 pages long with Word, no more 7. And then, wow. Then I got an offer from the University of California, where the digital world was overall. And again, I had a marvelous Apple computer that Word was developing. But suddenly, we got into an impasse. What was digitalization? Was mainly getting paper books into digital. So digitalization was all the paper stuff that we had, all the paper, put it into the digital world and read it, which you didn't like. So California was in that sense a little bit of a disappointment. Then I came to the University of Amsterdam, and at the University of Amsterdam was, wow, suddenly I was a member of the Amsterdam School for Cultural Analysis, and we did all sorts of trials with, for example, we got together and opened a book and started to imagine, all the people present in a seminar, how we could expand the limits of the text with the digital world. And that was, I enjoyed so much that I wrote a book about it, El Sexto Sentido. And later on, I was invited to go to the University of Madrid as Carlos III in Madrid as a professor, and I went very happy to go back to my country. But what happened at Madrid? Digitalization had not arrived, so I felt I went back to my I don't know 20 years before, no. So I regress in time, no. So at one moment I said, I remember that I went to conference and then people were somehow saying, PowerPoint, are we going to use a PowerPoint? That's a simplification. You're going to simplify. We're going to, I don't like it. I like ideas in the raw. Yeah. So then I decided this is not for me. I went back to the University of Amsterdam, and then cultural analysis in this open hybrid way helped me very much. So, in summary, we are in a moment really in history. You can see it in all ways of life in transition. We don't know where we are going. We know where we are coming from. You know, one of the things in Spain, in the Spanish culture and literature, there are these two authors that I'm sure you know well, which are Federico García Lorca and before Juan Ramón Jiménez. Both wrote wonderful books about the United States. Juan Ramón Jiménez went to get married to New York, and he wrote Diario de un poeta recién casado. And Federico García Lorca, poeta in Nueva York. You know what was the most significant component of those two books? The Anglo-Saxon culture, the United States, New York, the modern world. What was before them? France, the 19th century, the great 19th century of French literature, of French culture, all the universal expositions. But Juan Ramón and Federico García Lorca and others, they went to the United States and they found a new vitality, the really modern world. And that is what we have to do now. The world is changing, and now we have to add this new huge books. You have to. One of the things is, if in Spain now they are being published 74,000 titles a year. Nobody can read them. Let's say we select 1,500. We cannot say we are reading all the books published in Spanish. But if you select only the books related to literature, which are about 22,000, we cannot read 22,000. So we have to somehow turn around very quickly and go and grab what we can. Not all these books, because this surplus of books is you can never get a grip of all this quantity of material. But what you can do is to always try to amplify your context, to make it bigger with audio, with pictures, with all that is available in the digital world. And then see if some pioneer comes along and give us clues about how to get out of this huge tunnel and we will find ourselves today. Well, I think I spoke too long, and if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer to you, but you are also free to go to your own business.
Thank you very much, Germán. It was great. So many challenges, so many questions, thought-provoking. And as you said, we have a question here. In recent years, the second-hand book market has grown a lot with traditional bookshops, but also with low-cost bookshops such as Reread or Tick Books, with different shops in Spain and online websites like Ave Books, Iberlibros in Spain. How do you see this second-hand market, and what impact do these new platforms have on it?
Well, Iberbooks is. Let me talk about Iberbooks. Iberbooks is wonderful. It's a bookseller, I think is located in Oviedo, in Asturias, Spain, and that sells wonderful books, old books at a very decent price. So if there is something special you want to buy, they probably have it, or they will look for it and sell it to you at a very good price. So I think they are a wonderful business, and they will be there for a long. The others is the books. Nobody wants books anymore. So all the libraries, for example, I can tell you libraries in Madrid, they don't want any, they don't have space. That's one of the problems. There is not enough space. Not only that the houses of people are now smaller than they were, but they don't have the space. There is one part of the talk that I'm going to insert here, if you don't mind. Can I have 2 minutes longer, Pedro?
Yes. There is no problem. The people who might be busy or whatever, I mean, but you are very welcome. Don't worry about the time. It's so interesting. This topic that is normal. It's no problem at all.
You know, the one thing that I recommend to everybody is to create your own Noah's Ark. And what you created your Noah's Ark, you put in the Noah's Ark the books that you really like. For example, what I will do, I will put, let's say, Platero y yo. I will put El Romancero Gitano from García Lorca. I will put, and also books in English, books in French. I could not do without Madame Bovary. I could not do with some other books. And so your Noah's Ark will help you in this time, and probably try to, this small library, try to put it in a place where you can touch it. It's your real thing to grab. Not many. You don't have to have 1,000 books. You can have 300, 400. That is enough. And then you can also, if you like, the same with pictures. If you have your own pictures, I'm very fortunate, and my wife is a very good painter, and she has, in the last 2 years, 2 big prizes in England received for aquarels. But so I will take some of those pictures with me, because I've seen how she painted it, and others from friends, and others that I bought, or some you can. Upstairs I have copies of Vermeer, for example, that I like very much. Vermeer, the Dutch painter of the 17th century. So the Noah's Ark is important for you to get through these difficult times, this storm, because it's really raining, and the physical world is really trying to get you. And so you have your Noah's Ark, and then you are secure. You really have everything you need. Then what you say, all these second-hand books are really wonderful, but in my street in Madrid, in Padilla, I lived in the 74, I think it's 78, there is a bookstore where you can get books for free. It's a store where people take books. Really, they don't have any more space. And then you go there, for example, sometimes I go there because I need, for example, for some reason, La Colmena de Cela. But I don't have La Colmena de Cela. But I go there, I get my Colmena de Cela, go home and read it. I don't have even to buy. So the fluidity of all this, it is so fluid, what is happening in the book world. So they're selling books is not a good business. It was never really a good business. A friend of mine in Santander, Manuel Arce, had a wonderful bookstore, Sur, and one day he said to me, "Oh, I'm going to make it a art gallery." "Why, Manolo?" "Oh, books, they don't make you rich, but art will." and he was right. He made a fortune with the art world, and with the books, there was nothing. So I appreciate tremendously all these ways of selling books, and because it's a commodity that I mean, every time I see a book, I am very happy to see it. It's not the same as when I go to the supermarket. I see the oranges or whatever in plastic sacks or whatever. They don't make me that particularly happy. But if I go out and I see a book, I say, "Oh, wow, here's my book," and that is so. I said, I will say, either libros is something else. It's like a collector's item. It will be forever. The others are in the way out. I remember I found in Torrejón de Ardoz, that is next to Barajas in Madrid, a library, and I asked them, "Can I give you books?" "Oh, yeah." And I said, "How many?" "Oh, as many as you want." So I sent them 1,000 books that I didn't want. They were very happy. So I said, "Oh, I'm going to send them another 1,000 books of books that I don't want to have anymore. Those that are not going to go into my Noah's Ark." They said, "Oh no, please don't send us anymore. We don't have enough space." So you see, everywhere you turn, the digital world is looming very big, because you can, for example, I have to write an article for the Cultural del Mundo, 800 words, and about Flaubert, Madame Bovary, for next Wednesday. So I want to look it up. So what do? I go to my iPad, I open, and I can read or reread, I should say, some parts of Madame Bovary that will inspire me to write this thing. So I don't have to go and buy it. I don't have to own it in the way. So I'm very sorry to say it. So
we have the Historia from Denmark. Just a comment saying that in Denmark the reality is very similar to which you have described. But I may make a comment. The meaning of books as object, and the feelings and the emotions and the ideas that are channeled through books, these physical relations with books, maybe I am a bit old-fashioned, but I think it's essential to have the tranquility to think, to put questions in your mind. And the new technology, the digital, is very, as you had mentioned, you go to iPad, everything is there. You don't need the books, but the books is like the salt for the life, and that is also what we are seeing. On the one hand, there is this tendency where the predominance of the digital, but at the same time, we see those small publishing houses with edited, are editing the traditional paper books. And I am optimistic. I think the paper books are here to stay, not because at the beginning, 10 years ago, with the digitalization, the debate was in a few years we won't have any more paper because it's not practical and so. But the meaning of the object, the relations with books is so important for everybody that I cannot imagine the life without paper books.
I think, and I don't dare to say you because I'm very old and you are not, you are young, but I see, for example, my children. I have 3 boys. Well, boys, they are men, 32, 30 and 26, and they read books, a lot of books, but they really, what they read most is in their telephone. The telephone is taking over for reading, so they read in their telephone a lot of stuff. So perhaps in the future, the paper book, as you say, that you cannot do without. I also enjoy very much to have a paper. There was a student here in Amsterdam who did a PhD dissertation on the smell of the book. It's one of the things that I enjoy the most in books before, which is to go and smell. Somebody told me, well, that's what kids do in India to get high. And so now all the books are sewn, so you don't have this paste or this whatever they used to put them together that you smell, and oh, it was wonderful. Now it's all you don't use gum to bind it. So but yeah, I like the physical, and it's going to stay because it's a real thing that you can touch. But at the same time, I'm just trying to create a new type of book. I'm working on it very hard, and it's going to be. I have not decided which book is going to be, but a book that is going to have many ways of entering it into it. For example, when there is a description, there will be a picture of the place that is described. When there is something that is mentioned, there will be the text will be accompanied by many other, not only pictures, audios, all sorts of things. And what I think is another type of extension of us. So in the paper book, somehow we are going into this what I said before, this idealized I. But in the other, we're going to have to be more double, more different. I think we're going to have to be a different. We are going to probably be different human beings not in our lifetime, but in the near future, 50 years or so. Somebody here agrees, Michelle Hunt.
Yes, yes, I wholeheartedly agree that paper books will be around for a long time. Yes, they provide a sensory experience that digital will never achieve.
Yeah.
That's an opinion, yes.
Yeah. It's something, but I think we can, what we cannot, all the ideas are acceptable, but what I am really think is we cannot, what I said, turn our backs to the future and what is happening every day. No, I was very happy, for example, to see that in France, they have decided that Amazon cannot undercut the price offered by regular libraries. The book price is somehow fixed. You cannot go, as they do Amazon. What they do is they lose a lot of money at the beginning in all the markets. They did in Spain, now not anymore. But when they came to Spain, they lost a lot of money because they were selling books at 70% of the price.
Yes.
Now, they got such a huge market that they raise the prices and they are making a lot of money. Yeah. And that is terrible, no?
Well, if there are no more questions, I think we could stay here because it's passion for books, for culture, so many questions without no easy answers. But anyway, it was so interesting. Thank you, Germán. It's always such a pleasure to listen to you. And thank you to everybody for being with us in Instituto Cervantes, Manchester and Leeds. And let's keep both ways. And in Instituto Cervantes, we have our libraries in every institute, and we have the books, and we have also the digital.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Great.
Buenas noches.
Thank you. Thank you very much.